I want to mention. The first is that there's a guy named Michael Sandel who's written an important book. And in that book, his thesis is that in America, there is a common good. And for me, that's what Princeton Future is about, is figuring out what is the common good and trying to listen to the people that live here and listen carefully. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. The second thing is that we all elect our public officials, and the public officials serve us, and they hire staff at the municipality. But what Princeton Future is, it is not what's formerly called a part of the representative democracy. It is a participatory democracy organization which seeks to get out and actually listen to the residents of Princeton and figure out what they really would like. And lots of times, if you go to a formal hearing at the town, there are lawyers present, you get shy and you don't say what you really think. So that's what Princeton Future is trying to do. The third thing I wanted to mention is that Princeton Future has been blessed by the presence of a man named Tony Nelson, who has just taught yesterday his last class at Rutgers University after 50 years. And Tony has written a book just for this meeting that's been published, and it's called Community Visioning for Placemaking. It was very nice of him to write this book for this meeting and have it published. It will help us all in Princeton figure out how to get where we want to go over the next 25 years. And with that, I'm going to introduce Tony, who's going to lead us through the morning session. Many thanks for coming.
All right, you guys all saw this, the two ads that were in the paper, and really very pleased that you guys are all here. And believe it or not, with the introduction and welcome, we're actually right on schedule. What we're going to do is we're going to go through several things. One will be the really wonderful thing that was started here in Princeton called the Princeton Walks, and I'm going to show you kind of a summary of those, and Rich Rain will really take us through that. And then Carlos Rodriguez is going to go and tell us what people told us at the last meeting. I mean, it was a really impressive meeting the last time, and so the summary of that is really kind of, I think, really important. And then probably the most important part of the day is obviously the susceptibility to change mapping. Now, I'll go through this in some detail, but you see that there are 7 maps that were aerial photographs that were done, and there's a piece of tracing paper on top of that, and next to that there is a set of Crayola markers, and then there's some little instructions, and I'll take you through that in some level of detail. And then I would really like at the end, if we have time, to go through a presentation and discussion to look at and see what you actually told us. I think bottom line, of course, is that, we are looking for your opinion. And that is what Sheldon talked about earlier today. And I really think that, and we all think that we need a specifically tailored approach, obviously, to this extraordinary community that we live in, that has both, the issue they always talked about, economic value, ecological sustainability, and I think probably more important than anything else is this emotional sense of well-being. People love this town, and a lot of people don't want to see a change. Other people would like to see some changes, and we heard a lot about that from last week. Now, I have been really blessed that in my career, I've done about 400 towns across the United States where we've done this process in some detail. And I fundamentally believe this after dealing with these 400 towns, that no one knows the community better than those that live and work here, period. And I think there's visitors that we could include in this, but fundamentally, people who are here love the town, live in the town, and want to see the town continue to prosper and be the kind of character of place that people really want it to be. So right now, I'll introduce Rich. And of course, we have to absolutely start with Marina Robina, who really a member of the Princeton Future Board. At Marina, please just stand, because I think everybody knows who you are. But nonetheless, it was her idea initially to do these kind of community walks, to be able to get to explore the town. So here for a little bit is Marina.
So, hi everyone. We wanted to introduce our walks today, just to briefly tell you what we're doing, what it's all about. We call them Walks to Coffee, where we are looking for people in various neighborhoods of Princeton to join us and become neighborhood ambassadors. And we have two of our neighborhood ambassadors who already led the walks here today. And these wonderful folks know their neighborhoods, love their neighbors, and we got together at their neighborhood, and then we as a group walked towards a coffee shop and got coffee and chatted on the way. And the only requirement on our first walk was that you had to talk to somebody you don't know. And at the end of the walk, it was a very interesting comment that people made, that having had that assignment became sort of an impetus to meet new people and talk to new people, and people had so much fun. And we were surprised to have maybe 45 people. So even though the weather was kind of chilly, you see we're all wearing our, winter boots and hats, but it was very, very exciting. And we found some new passageways that people had no idea existed. Tony, did you include the map in the?
No, sorry.
He didn't include the map, but anyway, so we have maps of the walks. So we went one way from the Hunt School, and Eve is here. Wave. So Eve met us at the Hunt School, and then we walked to Sacred Coffee one way, and that was the shorter way. And then we turned around and we went back a different way, which was completely different, very much in the nature walk. It took longer, but we discovered things that people had absolutely no idea existed. So Tony didn't include the map. That was not fun, but if you need a map, we'll show it to you. Is there a next slide?
There is. And you click it one more time.
Oh, okay. So we actually do not. Sorry. So on our second walk, we went. It was called Sweet to Sweet, where we went and met Thomas Sweet, and Rich was our second neighborhood ambassador, and he led us through alleyways and passageways, and found interesting moments to talk about architecture and spaces that could be fun to explore. So I think some of those places are on the maps today. So Rich, are you at the table where we walked by? Well, we'll find the places. So the point of this is these are very informal. These are completely for meeting new people and introducing your neighborhood and sharing the love of your neighborhood with others. But it's also about rethinking mobility. And when we had a couple people who live in the Hunt neighborhood who came on the walk, who said, I have lived in my neighborhood for 20 years and I had no idea I could walk downtown, and I walk all the time. And it was just so revealing that when we walk out of our house and there's our car and we just jump into it and we go, we don't even think that, I could just get there by foot all of a sudden. So we really encourage everyone to think about being a neighborhood ambassador. Please, please. So talk to any Princeton Future member. You could talk to me or Rich or Tony or Carlos, anyone, and we'll help you plan the walk. It's not scary at all. It's tons of fun, and you get to share the love of your neighborhood and your secret passageways with us. That would be really exciting for us. So thank you.
I'm going to point out a few little things that are just food for thought, and when we get to lily pies, we can talk more about it, or later in email exchanges, whatever.
Thank you, Tony. I guess I'm okay to be heard in the back. I hope so. Thank you. I'm here to give a book report. I haven't done one of them in 50 or 60 years, but I'll give it a shot. The book I'm referring to is the pamphlet that's at the back of the room, and we've got a bunch of them printed out, and I hope you can grab them. Hope they're enough to go around. It's a 28-page booklet, and it's basically the transcript of what we did here on March 5th. So we promised that we would listen to people, but listening to people and then walking away and saying, oh, great, that was real interesting, thanks. That's really only part of the process. I think the rest is getting the word out to other people. So that 28-page booklet put together with a lot of hard work by Sheldon, thank you very much, really is an important little document. And so I went through it. Maybe the most important part of it was the statement right at the beginning by Louise Wilson, chair of the planning board. And she, in a sense, addressed the point made by the people who said, gee, their neighborhood isn't in this. The master plan is supposed to cover all the neighborhoods. Josh Zinder made a similar point. And as Louise pointed out, the planning board is legally responsible for doing the master plan. And it is not just like, oh, go do a master plan. There's a whole set of rules and regulations that they need to follow to do that plan. So this is not a substitute for the master plan. This is a chance to give all of us a little head start and to get us tuned into some of the issues that many of the people on the master plan committee will be talking about. They are not just opening up the doors to a bunch of people for a steering committee the way we are, and hearing what you all have to say. They are creating a steering committee. It's a process. They had a meeting, actually their first meeting last week. Jerry Muller, the attorney, said, don't anybody show up at this Princeton Future meeting today because you could get into legal difficulties in terms of open meeting acts and all the rest, which we totally understand. And then yesterday they talked about setting up their steering committee, and they've got people already in mind that they want to have on that steering committee. But to do it, they had to go into closed session because they're going to ask some people have turned them down. They might pick somebody, but they might not. And, just in terms of feelings and goodwill, they didn't want that publicized. So we're doing a little bit differently here. We're running sort of a side track, but it's not a substitute track. It's not the same, but it does, I think, speak to one of the goals that the planning board has, and this is a part of the marching orders given to them yesterday at their Friday afternoon meeting that they held. A brief part of which was public. The steering committee members, these are the people they're in the process of picking, will ensure that the consultants understand, that's Clark, Caton, and Hintz, outside consultants, understand the shared values and divergent viewpoints of Princeton. The steering committee people will also be advocates in the community for robust participation. I'm emphasizing the word robust participation in the series of public forums led by the consultant. So as I think about our process here, I think we're just trying to build up the robust participation level. We're trying to get everybody here sort of tuned into what's going on, so we don't show up at a official meeting that says we're going to talk about land use, and we walk in trying to think, what are the elements of land use again? And then we wait for them to educate us, and then our comments are based on their education. And that's okay, and it needs to be done, but I think we're going to sort of get a lot of thoughts out here through the process that we're doing. And in the process, engaging with the rest of the community, which is just a good thing in any case. So I went through the book and looked at all the comments, and the planning board has 9 elements that they have to address. So I went through our here's someplace, there it is. I went through our book, and I sort of started allocating where different people had addressed each of their 9 elements. And we touched on almost everything. But we also had one thing that they did not have on. We actually had 2 things that were not on their list of 9 elements. A lot of people mentioned diversity and inclusion, equity. I think that they would argue that each one of their 9 is going to be looked at through that lens. They're going to keep that in mind, and I suspect that's true. There was another thing that came out, and it was mentioned by a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And I began to call it the X factor. Lee Brigeau, she's here, talked about when the kids were growing up, they could play on the street. And she said the street was the great equalizer. Some kids might get invited to another kid's house to go into their backyard, but when they're out on the street, all the kids could participate as much as they wanted to. Dinah Moore was here and said that in the COVID days, the early days of COVID, when everything was really shut down, Green Street was taken over by a group of about 7 or 8 kids. She said it became their street. They were out there playing in the street, drawing on the pavement, and so on. Justin Lesko, the senior planner, senior planner by title, he's a young guy. He said, I'm 28 years old, and I'm interested in what you all have to say. He said, if you see me out walking my dog or see me sitting at Heinz Plaza, come up to me and talk to me. Well, Justin, you asked for it. I saw him walking his dog right by St. Paul's Church. So I buttonholed him for 10 or 15 minutes. Interesting discussion. But that's the kind of thing that goes on. And it was felt particularly by some of the younger people or people representing younger people. They're just they're looking for the spontaneous thing that's not planned, not pre-programmed. You don't have to make an appointment or get dressed up or whatever. You just find some fun someplace. And somebody mentioned we don't want a town that falls asleep at 9 p.m. So a lot of those things came through. In terms of numerical order, the X factor was mentioned by a lot of people, but the other thing that was mentioned by almost everybody, and I could go down the list and mention a bunch of names here, but the need for more housing, better housing, diverse housing, missing middle housing, affordable housing, all sorts of different statements were made to it, but a lot of people just felt either they or the next generation, people like them who would be coming into town now were just being driven out by ever escalating prices. So that all registered. So where does it go from here? I'm reluctant to take any more time. I'd love to start mentioning some more of these names. I really urge you take a look at the book, get a hold of the book, and you'll see some great comments and some great ideas. A number of people also talked about the process and what's going to happen. Does any of this stuff ever happen? All these great ideas ever turn into change? And one of the good points on that was made by a guy who's lived in town, I think, all his life. And I'm talking about you, Michael. Michael said
I lived in San Francisco. I lived in Cleveland.
Born in Princeton.
Platesboro. I lived in Ewing.
Were you not born in Princeton?
I was born.
And I think
My
you
mother
said,
was born here.
and I think Michael said the first 12 years of his life on 40th Street.
Yes.
And so all sorts of places in between. So in a sense, then this makes his statement even better because he's seen it happen, I'll bet, at each one of those places. He said at the end of this day, the master plan is going to have goals and objectives looking out for 25 years. And if you look at them, he's saying, you're going to like them all. You're going to like all the goals and all the objectives because that's how they're going to be phrased. But the question is, out of all that stuff that we like, how much is actually going to happen? How much is going to turn into action? I think that's the point you were making.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. And so in that sense, so what we're doing, again, a little bit unlike the master plan's committee, the official process is bringing people together. You write the master plan, you say, woo, we did it. Let's pop the champagne corks. And I think what we're doing is we're trying to build a community of people who look at it and say, okay, the master plan's good. We participated, we contributed. But we're going to stick with it because it's the battle is not done. So thanks all for coming, and I urge you, buy that book, which you can get for free on your way out. Thank you.
All right. Part of what Rich did will be probably covered again, but Carlos Rodriguez did an extraordinary job of summarizing all the stuff that was last week. Our last meeting on the 5th. By the way, here's the photographs of that meeting, and it was the first public meeting after COVID, which was really pretty interesting. So, Carlos, if you want to come up and go through this.
That's the one. Okay, so if you don't want to read the book, I'm going to give you the short version here. And it's organized thematically, so these are comments that address the downtown and sort of economic development in general. Economic development is actually not a required component of the master plan. Princeton has never had an economic development strategy, ever. Not entirely clear whether we will as a result of this effort, but clearly people think about it. And so these are comments that were made along those lines. Need more businesses that cater to the locals, not to the tourists. Need a post-retail downtown that's more diverse in terms of uses, activities, attractions, events, and maybe stays open a little later. Need more liquor licenses. And by the way, since the number of liquor licenses in New Jersey is tagged to the population, basically the comment is we need the town to grow, because if it doesn't grow, then no more liquor licenses. Princeton should assert its personality and not become a watered down version of nothing. Parking tickets are too expensive. Are they?
Don't get them.
I haven't had a parking ticket in decades.
Yeah.
You just have to know where to park. And don't turn Princeton into New Haven or Cambridge was a comment. I'm not sure exactly what's wrong with these places, but anyway, somebody didn't want Princeton to become New Haven or Cambridge. And then with respect to housing, the fear that Princeton will become even more of a gated community. I could see that easily happening. The master plan has completely failed on the housing front. It sure has. That 3 year or 4 years that was spent in litigation and the 1.5 million in fees to consultants and the 735 unit settlement with the judge, that's a testament to the failure of the master plan and the zoning on the housing front. Now, need greater resiliency and equity. That's a related comment. Prevent Princeton from becoming even more of a gilded cage and gated community. The John Witherspoon neighborhood is increasingly commodified. And where are the 20 and 30-year-olds? Where? We happen to have one person that fits in that category, one that's sitting in the back of the room. One, the token. Oh, I'm sorry, there's a second. Wow.
100% increase.
Very good. We're making progress, folks. All right. With respect to transportation and circulation, no bikes on sidewalks. I might also add no scooters on sidewalks. They seem to be everywhere these days. And they're fast.
They're fat.
And they come at you. They come at you. The cars are out of control. Really? Yeah, I see cars going through red lights every day. I see school buses going through red lights every day, completely out of control. I might add this: the traffic signals are also completely out of whack. It's great when children can play in the streets, and that means traffic calming, basically, or what traffic engineers now call pedestrian countermeasures. And it might mean closing streets to everything but local traffic as well, something that other towns are doing, but not here. Greater emphasis on pedestrian and bike orientation. Greater freedom for children to move around. Again, traffic calming, street closures. Lots of emphasis on that. Give priority to pedestrians. Yeah, that's a good, that's a worthy goal. I don't know if people realize that when they do traffic studies, they count cars. They never count pedestrians. Never. When they do traffic studies to set the signal timing at an intersection, again, they count cars. They don't count pedestrians. It doesn't matter how long the light is there. It only matters how long the light is for cars, not for pedestrians. And a comment about parking, induced demand for more parking, meaning cap parking as a strategy to get people out of cars. Because if you keep providing more and more parking, you're just inviting people to drive more and more cars. All right, with respect to infrastructure, we need greater resiliency in the energy field. Should explore community solar and energy storage options. This is a big thing that is also happening. There are programs, the state of New Jersey has programs to promote this. It doesn't seem to be happening here, but there's no reason why it couldn't. The idea is that you're not dependent on energy that's coming from a power plant that's in Salem County and you lose half the energy in shipping it over. You're actually localizing the source of energy so that you're not dependent on infrastructure that's somewhere completely different and is fragile. We need a new community center, maybe. Apparently there's a task force that's been investigating this, like there's a task force for everything else in this town. Place all utilities underground. That would be nice. The problem is that PSE&G will not do it or will charge astronomical amount of money to do it. And then in terms of attitudes, the town needs to be more proactive towards change. More proactive, because change is inevitable and it happens all the time. Very true. And if you're not proactive, you're reactive. And you may not like what you get. Another comment, don't resist change, embrace it. Yeah, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Focus on what we want, not what we don't want. Princeton is too elitist. A comment about the I grew up in Princeton Facebook page. It's all about turning back the clock to a time when discrimination and exclusion were rampant. Well, I'm not on the Princeton, I grew up in Princeton Facebook page, so I wouldn't know, but I suspect that may be true. And people who don't come to these meetings are the problem. These meetings like this. And then there were a number of comments about cannabis, which is really not a master plan issue at all, but there were a number of people who felt strongly about it, and I'm sure will continue to. So with that, I'm done.
Okay, good.
Should I explain the purpose of these maps?
Yes, if you want to, please.
Okay, so the purpose of these maps, as somebody pointed out, do not cover the entire town. And that was by design. The purpose of these maps is to identify sites that are susceptible to change, meaning that people think something different might and possibly should happen there. 90% of the town is really not susceptible to change. The neighborhoods out along the periphery, single-family neighborhoods, large lot zoning, they're really not likely to change in any way. But there are other areas that are sitting there waiting for a better solution to be found. And so in identifying these 7 maps, these maps focus on areas that we think have sites that could and perhaps should be redeveloped in a different way. And so the purpose of this exercise is for people to identify those sites on their own. Okay?
Perfect. There was a question? No. Okay. So let me continue on. I have always, in my 50 years of teaching, have usually began all my classes and all of the 400 or so places I worked around the United States start with this basic diagram. Places grow, they evolve, they optimize, they decline, they rehabilitate. And somebody said if you go to Jerusalem now, you'll dig down 70 feet and you'll find the original city. Every place has evolved this way, from one form to the other. Now, we as humans, we're formed, we optimize, we try to live as long as possible, we decline and we die. Cities don't. This university won't. It will continue to go on, it'll continue to grow, it'll continue to evolve, it'll continue to optimize. But it's not, that simple in some cases. This is not a kind of a nice, clean, geometric form, but nonetheless, it is more like this. Now, a lot of people want us to stay, and a lot of communities want to stay up in the optimization stage. And what happens, they push that as long as they possibly can until something comes along that forces change, whether that's climate change, new zoning, or what have you, or a push, a riot, a war. It doesn't really make any difference. But what was really interesting about this is that, and this really came from, I stole this from Josh Zinder's presentation when he was doing the hotel. And it came from the Historic Society. There's Nassau Street. Now, I've looked at this photograph so many times, and they were using it to represent the yellows of the signs. But I was looking at it. Look at the incredible detail that was here. The windows, the doors, the cornice lines, the diagonal parking on the street. It's really quite a remarkable photograph. And I went, really, 4 and 5 stories high. So I tried to get as close as I can to that same location. Now, this place has changed, and it continues to change. First, the diagonal parking is all gone. It's now become a major highway. And notice the buildings have lost all of that, or most of that, just a few of them left, of that kind of detailed, beautiful, historic pedestrian character. And the buildings have become more, I would say, more institutionalized over time. And then also another one that came from that one was this early photograph, and you can see by the cars, it's probably 1910 someplace. Look at the extraordinary activity that was on the street way back when. This city was always a pedestrian city in terms of its main street. Again, the signing was really cool. You can see the various things there. You can see the bicycles, you have people walking on the street, the ice cream on the street. And then how many of you remember when Princeton was opposed to sidewalk cafes? We couldn't have sidewalk cafes. And along comes COVID, and all of a sudden, wham, we start to look a little bit like every major urban city and pedestrian place, probably in the world, especially in small towns. I thought PJ's was incredible because what they did is they let the pedestrians go in the middle or focus around the actual pedestrian area and the eating area itself. And we found from years and years and years back, from early works by Holly White, particularly Holly White, which is part of Rich's book, that people love to interact with this kind of stuff on the street. The more of this, the better, obviously. So now when you look around and you see so much that's sitting here empty, sitting here just waiting. But waiting for what? Waiting for what? Because in some cases, it's almost impossible in some cases to make these kind of decisions. And this is just a sample of the stuff. And I'm going like, okay, what will be the next step? Now, one of the things that we want to do today is to look at what could happen in 3 to 15 years. And now we're saying not what we're saying is where. Where do you guys think that change should occur? Now I'm going to show you a couple of these things. Now, this is a typical one. And again, I said I've done so many of these things across the country where people have just participated at the early phases of development to be able to do these susceptibility of change maps. And I'm going to guess the estimate we've done 130, 140,000 people have now gone through this process. Now, the key one is 4 colors. Green is, I don't want you to touch this at all. It should be left alone now and forever. Yellow is, yeah, okay, it's okay. It may need a little paint, but nothing more than that. Orange means it's starting to look a little bit deteriorated and something could begin to happen. And red means really something should seriously happen. It's highly susceptible to change. Now, we got rid of the words redevelop completely. People got totally panicked when they heard that word. So we, about 15 or 20 years ago, changed that to susceptibility to change. We just want to know what you think are places that might change in the future and at what intensity. So here's a typical example. This was Middlesex Borough in New Jersey. And again, the same 4 colors, people did it, and they came out with a synthesis of where. But look at the huge amount of green here. But you can also see, if you've gone through Middlesex, that whole corridor, everybody in the town thought that was completely red, and something should happen in that corridor. This one here is really interesting because this is called Pepper, Virginia. And this is a small town, not much, a little bit smaller than Princeton. And you can see here the kind of the variation of this is a synthesis map. Now, once you finish this exercise, we will then synthesize these things for the next meeting. But I am hoping that Clark, Caton, and Hintz will do what we did for Culpeper, and that is do a 3-dimensional model of every building in town. So we actually know once and for all what it is now. Josh Zinder's firm has really started a good bunch of that, but this is typically what we would do for every town. But then what we do then is take that susceptibility to change and actually translate it to both the lots and the buildings. Now that's not saying what's going to happen. It's just saying these are sites that that the town told us that we should consider as change for the future of some kind. Then this drawing was done. This one hangs in the mayor's office, and it's about half the size of that wall over there. This was an axiometric that was done that said all of those sites, everything that's in red or orange, will come up with a conceptual idea of what could happen on the site, and then give it to the architects to be able to say they could improve it, they could change it, but fundamentally, those are the sites. And this is what Culpeper essentially agreed on. One closer to home, Collingswood, New Jersey. Collingswood, New Jersey, we did that plan for them as well. Again, this is what they did their downtown. It was a focus on the downtown. Again, create the 3-dimensional model, create the infill pattern, do the preliminary sketches, the doodles of what the place might look like. And then we came up with 2 possible responses, prototypes. One was a residential prototype. And you can see here, you've got stoops and stairs in the front, parallel parking, wide sidewalk, parking underneath, 3 levels of housing, a double-loaded corridor. That's about 75 units per acre. And then this one was one with the retail frontage, or it could be an office, could be a psychiatry's office, it could be anything at that point. But these are essentially 2 prototypes that was used in Collingswood. Then this one you may be surprised with. This was certainly one of the big red sites. It's a big parking lot. And my mantra has been since the very beginning, parking lots are the land banks of the future. Surface parking lots are the land banks of the future because we can deal with them in some form or another. But now so this is one of the big red ones, but this is after we did all the visioning process, is what they wanted. Now, notice on the right-hand side of the slide, something very familiar. It's Hullfish Street. We tested Hullfish Street in Collingswood, and they loved it. They thought it would be perfect for Collingswood. So we did the simulation to include that in this particular area, double the amount of parking, created these beautiful pedestrian realms. And these are kind of photo simulations, which literally every major architect now in town can actually do. Now, they also wanted wider sidewalks. Okay, let's simulate what that could look like. So here it is. We left the existing curb. We just poured in a new curb and added another 2 feet. But notice we did something rather radically. We took out the parallel parking. Now, what's really interesting about it is that one of the big issues of circulation, which is going to be part of the master plan, is what do we do with parallel parking? Now, you will probably know that the hotel is starting on Chambers Street next week. We're going to start demolition, and it's going to go to a one-way street, and they're going to take the parking off of one side of Chambers Street, and they're going to make it, I think, permanently take it off now. Now, I always thought it was really interesting listening to like Jan Gell and people like that who have said, and why is Copenhagen the most extraordinary city, in terms of pedestrian and bicycle? He said, because every year we took off 6 or 7 parking spaces. We didn't take them all off. We just took a few off every year. So people got accustomed to seeing that. And what did we transfer there? We transferred it back to bicycle paths. It would be that as it may. This was a Collingwood Park. What got built? That's this. I mean, this was Kitchen Associates that did this. It worked out very well, I think, for them. Now, this one to me was particularly near and dear to my heart. This is East Trenton. In this particular case, we actually, had people do it. And we not only did that, we had them do the streets, and we had them do the lots, and we had them do the buildings. And what happened is what's really remarkable with a little bit of education you can see here the variation on everything that they thought was terrible and needed to be replaced or done something to. And then they also did this map, which I find rather extraordinary, of all the areas that are in excellent condition in East Trenton, and you can see it, they're completely spotted. And what we started to find out from our work in Baltimore and other places, that if you do one little improvement someplace and everything next to it is deteriorating and falling apart, what happens is it's like a cancer. It just can't continue to grow. You need coherent places which are totally together. And then this was just prototypes, but these prototypes were all custom built, actually modular housing that we had designed for them. And they were really perfectly, they thought this was the most remarkable thing. And it has all those components. So this one, which I'm now calling the University Town of Princeton, because we cannot, in any respect, ignore the university as part of this town. I mean, they are so far ahead of this town in their solar capability, in the buildings they're building, in the landscaping they've got, in their wiring underground. I mean, it is just remarkable and absolutely beautiful, and we all know it. It's probably the best park probably in the world. We consider it to be one of the best walking universities. Now, the question is on the other side of Nassau Street, where we are, the question is, will it be equivalent to what the university is doing on the opposite side of the street? Now, did we start that here? Absolutely. For a while, I was a planning consultant for the Witherspoon-Jackson area, and Jana, which is a force to be reckoned with, as you all know. We had a visioning workshop with that group about 2 years ago, a year and a half or so ago. And by the way, Carlos Rodriguez is on that board. And what they came up with was this was their susceptibility to change map. Everything that's in orange here, they would like to see change, including probably one of the biggest was the Salt Dome lot, as you all know down there. I really think that Salt Dome lot should be pushed down River Road, and then that should be rebuilt as housing and something else. But the biggest thing that they said is Witherspoon Street. Now, the really nice thing that's going on is that the town has now decided to tackle Witherspoon Street. But there's a lot of stuff along Witherspoon Street that needs to be done with. Bobby Hilliard has got stuff along there he wants to do. Other people are buying property along there. Franklin Avenue attaches into it. And whether I completely think that Witherspoon Street is probably the most important single pedestrian street in town. It is the thing that links this whole town together. So anyway, that's what they told us. And it's really wonderful that the town is now responding to it. Exactly what that plan is. It's more engineered than anything else, but we will see. Now, the next piece of this thing is really the susceptible to change. Now, there are many locations, and I think Carlos explained this really well, to be determined. We have created these 7 maps, and we thought the 7 maps are, by the way, what this room could hold. But we also had to blow it up to the point that I found that if we don't take these maps large enough, people can't find where they are. They're just too small to get into the nitty-gritty detail. And I apologize for not having those other things in there, but these were the 7. And if you want, we will do another one that blows up different neighborhoods. But you have on the table a map of an area. You have a set of colored magic markers. You have some instruction, and you have a piece of tracing paper on the top. Now, this is the area. Now, each of you has a number. That's your group. And what we like is to have the group, all the 1s, 2s, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7s, pick up one of the maps, doesn't care which one you do. And then after 10 minutes, which will be on the screen, you rotate to another map and look at it. Then after that 10 minutes, you rotate to another map. So in the same way we did the last public meeting, is that we want everybody to look at all of them, not just one, my little map, I live in my little neighborhood. Okay.
I have a suggestion. Each of you is at a table. Just make sure you stay as a group and you just go to the next table, the next table, the next table, so that each of you sort of stays together, I think. And because I don't think everybody has a number. That's
Okay, well, again, there are these 7 maps. Yes.
I'm just curious if we're gonna sort of have a circulatory look at each of these, and you come to a plan that has them colored in a way that you don't agree. How do you deal with the?
We don't agree.
Yep.
I don't wanna say
Okay,
disagreement,
I
but
will.
basically-
You're about 3 slides ahead of me.
All right.
You're about 3 slides ahead of me. So the key one is, let's say you got green, yellow, orange, and red, of course. Now, what happens if you go around and you say, hey, I don't agree with that? Any additional, what we have found over time is we go around, and if people on the first map agree, we just say, circle it again. If you don't agree, put a little note on the map. Put a little note. Now, these are going to be really messy at the end. They always are. They look like Miro drawings at the end. I think they're the greatest set of maps ever. And what we will do then is we will synthesize the pieces and bring it back to you the next time with the thing, did we get it right? Did you get it right? So you notate. Like, for instance, if somebody said, I think all this area should be red, the next one puts on, I think the whole area should be green. We have red and green on there. We're going, we got a problem here because half of it is one, half of it is the other. But for the first time, we will know what people think about these particular sites. That really is the key. And really just make the changes however you want to do that. And don't worry if it's messy, and do not hesitate to pick up the markers and draw. The more you draw on these things, the better off it's going to be. And they're going to look messy at the end, but they're going to be beautifully messy. But so that would be the one that, now, you all have 10 minutes. So each table is 10 minutes. So you'll see a clock that'll start 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
That's sort of build another project. Well, I don't understand. They're saying like, well, where do you get your taxes done? And I mean, of course, if the Senior Research Center does taxes with seniors, but they come here or the library. That's what I said. Like, we already have like a community center corridor from the Y's over to the library. You've got the Arts Council, the rec department, the Y, I mean, everything.
They put an overlay on these 3 lots, if I remember correctly, that are there designated to increase the density and affordable housing ability on those lots.
Can't tell which one's mine.
You want to look this?
I think so, yeah. I think it's that one. Is Turkey? No. Turkey is way over there, right? The shopping center? No, I just mean that. This is the cemetery. It wasn't? It was cut off. So there's the library. That's where I used to go now. That's where
Yeah, and so maybe they're a little like bulldoze happy sometimes, and just like there was a major issue with our prospect, you know, with this whole new kind of expansion of the thing, to tear down those historic homes. Like they built their plan without any consideration. So then there was like, you know, the preservation committee or whatever kind of went up against them, and I think in the end they found a compromise. Well, I think they're like straight up moving their house.
They are. I live north.
And I think they have the ability to do that, but it's just like, you know, there could have been maybe more consideration of a workaround, and like just kind of like
Right. Next year.
Alright, where is this? What are some of these pictures?
Carter's here.
Yeah,
That's like an office.
yes, I will represent my church. Do you have many?
Which is what it is now.
What is that? Is that the middle school?
what if there was more like walkways, like through again like pedestrian walkways?
Oh, right. There is somewhere around here. There is a many protecting like public transport all over this.
Yes.
I just, you know.
Yeah. That's great.
Right now, we're facing rents going up 20, 30, 40% every year. And so, because the market is totally screwed up. So I agree there should be adjustments for inflation and for taxes for sure. Hopefully they should have adjustments in addition to
Yeah, the taxes went up here just because for no reason, so I would increase the rent.
Well, when your taxes go up, that's totally understandable.
You can't.
Well, what happened was these neighborhoods were the cheapest parts
Right,
of town.
that's right.
Now they're the most desirable because they're close to downtown. And some of the square foots here are more expensive than additions. So the tax burden for the whole town has been shifted onto this area and anywhere else where housing prices are very low.
In any other town, every town has its own specific issue. In any other town, if there had not been a large African population, this would have been high price for the get-go. That's townhouse, whatever, like it is up here. But
That's right. And that's why we've lower prices all the time. But now no place is price. Are there any other areas that should be developed or should not be
So
developed?
they put this is the ball field and this is the school.
oh,
That needs to
the double read that. That's absurd.
Sir, that
It's
is
being saved out of nostalgia.
That is
I
not-
went to this school 50 years ago. Please.
really. I don't
Well,
know.
if you could have taken the building and transformed it 20 years ago,
Right.
That's exactly what that.
maybe
But let's not take away recreation. In
But,
my opinion.
well, this looks like it's already passed for housing or something. It already passed because that's an AOH 7. Isn't that a housing thing? No, that's Valley Road School. That's Valley
I
Road.
haven't heard about any plans to do housing.
I don't know, but that's AOH 7. Isn't that affordable?
Another historic designated
Yeah, I
status.
understand.
Can't be touched. Sorry.
But this needs to.
I don't know if that's.
All right, so
That's private property. I don't think that's in play.
Yes.
Yeah. So originally, during consolidation, they had Markov. Okay, so here's Jugtown.
And that wasn't anything without marking
This is driveway or road.
How fast track they get is.
Well, this is 221 plus 80 units over here to gain 95 affordables. And this is all done. This
Make that red.
It's already done? Or do we care?
Well, let's just do it.
Why not? Yeah, this is already it. This is Avalon. So it's done. It's a done deal. You know, one of the things, out of the 8 affordable housing projects, 5 are in this area. There's 600 units that to get 188 affordables. Okay, I'm going to talk because I have passion.
You go where the land is.
Well, gee, really? How about that? What's all this land down here? Anybody ever see a ghetto before?
Where is
This is where we are, and this is our whole town.
Yeah. Most of the town lives.
Yeah, they said it's a nice building. They don't want to torn down. It's in the paper. It was Termo Bakeries or whatever it's called.
Termo.
And the cigar store. Yeah, they want to just put apartments in the streets.
I'm surprised at that. Oh, here. What about the school?
Yeah.
I would definitely.
Yeah, it threw me off for a second
Rebuild this university? Could they take all of this and redo this into student housing down by the lake?
They could, but there's already housing there.
It's already low density university housing.
So I would say that's highly susceptible to change.
Well, they already have their housing here. I mean,
Well, they had a plan to extend this. This side is all green space.
so let's just say this
They
is.
had a plan that got killed like in 2008.
But do you think that this part could be more orange? I mean, they might keep the density here.
You get that feeling when you ride your bike.
Yeah.
Hi, how are you?
Hello, are you the young person who actually lives in Princeton? And is
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay,
we're
now
taking
I
a
have
class
kind
on
of
it, so.
pitching something.
Okay.
I'm a mom of a kid with autism, and I know that a lot of parents who have kids
So
with
we think
autism, kids are your
this
age,
area-
you know, we're getting them. There's no music for
Nice and green.
It's hard, right? The town is, has so many stakeholders for it. We talk about this all the time.
Nobody's turning in or
Is your
turning
child,
We're starting the process, and his best bet is to sort of, live far off in Plainsboro.
But the university has already talked about
who's,
putting.
is he live independently or?
It is susceptible.
Sort of, supervision.
Right, of course.
So I have this idea that, if you build, when you create more affordable housing units and you mix in units with,
This
for
stuff
people with
that's
developmental
really
disabilities and
the issue.
it's over here. And there's an old little right-of-way path back in there. I haven't walked. Okay, I know everyone's really walking, but I don't
Right now, that I have.
Yeah.
They did a traffic study and they said there's no traffic showers. So there's student housing.
And so,
There's,
you know, and most of that is sort of physical.
This is my understanding.
It's both ways, right? It's
Yeah, there's been development of
You should really wait.
It's better than Princeton. Free prison.
And they came and they said, okay,
This is artificial.
very high.
Orange, which is like ambiguous. I would go
Students here at the graduate campus, hopefully, a lot of those cars are going.
What do you guys think of the surface mounted parking lot? Parking behind, so it's a little bit, instead of it being a hole, like you said.
The land, what do you call it, the land bank?
Land bank, it's essentially a land bank, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have parking, we still have parking. But how about having some?
Right across the street.
Right.
One on near Fort Farm Road, that has a little yeah, the old slave building that, you know,
Yes.
completely, you know, pivoted because there's a little cul-de-sac where the residents bought it. And I think that's always been the case. So,
And that's all.
how you factor that in.
So that's 65 affordable units. So it's designated affordable. One of the problems with affordable housing is that we're building all these market housing to get this many affordables. And there's.
As my Russie friend would get this, some of them are, some of them aren't. Sometimes a lot of these lots, some are universities, some are private. Unless they start buying more
It's just like, okay, yeah.
What do we think about this part? Oh, you know that one. Yeah, this is the senior housing, and then this is Spruce, and then
This is the housing here. You're looking to keep that. I mean, I want to keep the character of this part of the town. If they're going to develop this, they often look at highly successful. You want to keep the character coming in. I think it's quieter. It's quieter. I want to compliment you. Well, we don't want that. I'm sure it's just.
I think there should be a medical building line on that.
What is this? This was the old church.
This is the Princeton.
it goes up and then they put it. Yeah, they're very, very old. So they
We can't put a three-story apartment.
Cars still.
What is that?
Yeah, but that's a change. Doesn't stop really looking at that.
Currently 1.5.
No, it's not cars. So right now you're allowed to build, take the size of the property, the lot, okay? You're allowed to build 1.5 stories. You can build the whole lot, build 1.5 stories. Okay, so you're technically not allowed to build a 3-story building in the Texas business area. And it's a very odd way to look at it. So what happens is now into every single project, anything that comes in is required to get there.
I live on John. Josh is he's working with the owners to renovate this and put an additional apartment building in the back.
That's a great idea because
This
there's
is
a lot of,
this house is going to be, it was a single family, it's going to be a duplex.
it's going to be even a quadruplex because there's a lot of green around.
Yeah.
There's actually a couple of bigger buildings.
This one, Josh redid this one.
Okay.
Wait, not this one. This one.
Where is
You are here. That's the library.
So the library, right, and the parking deck.
This thing, I want that thing. This is the PSC. I don't know what this is.
Yeah, well, it's funny because
they won't complain.
Right. Isn't there something new here? Is it this new house?
Yeah.
There's apartments. Yeah.
Carnival.
Right.
The Carnival.
The Prudential building next to it.
Right. Yeah.
So that's nice and dense.
I never used
They're completely, the post office is not get toable, it's always filled up.
Oh my gosh, it's so difficult. We go to Rocky Hill.
The university has a rather large parking lot.
Right.
Instead of
It's awesome. Yeah.
It's very large. It's very accessible. So this area, the university is placing open up the deck for the town, rather than it's half the time there aren't any cars in there. But you can't go in there during the day. Actually, after 5 and 10, with access. Those cars
Oh, good idea. Right, we did that. Yeah, that's a good idea.
But national story.
And we know that this is going to be
this was how far? I don't know.
it's two separate. Right? It's two separate things.
Okay.
Oh, it is two separate.
And we're across the street on through here.
This here.
Yeah, and some it's most of it. There are two different.
Well, definitely.
The tie's been there forever.
Now go see what other houses are.
Yeah. Okay. Is that saying? Yes, the Nobsy County is so much.
And they're all the same. They haven't really evolved.
It's just like, yes, so really wonderful experience.
You're right, but when I discovered this park on Pine Street, I felt like such a sense of
If you would,
magic.
change tables again.
Behind it, so you
Change tables again, please.
Really?
This is the university.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is going to be important thinking about susceptibility to change is not running off the university land though. If there's something
Across the street from the library. That'd be perfect spot.
You know what? It's my property. I don't want it. What is storage?
Yeah, but there's not a place for us. I mean, it's become like a high
Oh, yeah.
discuss about recycling. So if it's lost between here and there, then that's
No, the shopping center is right here. I live right here. Right here. Harrison Street. This is Harrison Street. Right, Harrison and Cherokee.
This is Valley.
Yeah, this is Valley.
But where's Valley and where's Walnut?
It would be over here. It's off the map. It's off the map.
Is that
This is Cherokee. This is Cherokee right here. This is Harrison Street right here. This is the bank. This is McCaffrey's. I'm like right on Cherokee. Cherokee's going down. Grover's over here. Grover's back here. Grover's right here. Grover's behind, right here. Here's Grover, right here. Yeah. This is Grover Avenue.
on Terhune and Grover.
Yeah. That's Cherokee. This is Grover. Down there. Let's see. Down in there. Oh, right, pick up that thing. You can probably see.
Yeah, we didn't.
I like it.
Somebody's house here.
I see there's still a few people still looking at the maps. You can continue that, of course, but I just want to tell you that the next step for us are there's going to be additional walks to coffee exploring the town, so that we'll look forward to that. The next Princeton Future meeting will synthesize everything that you guys told us today, and we will report all of this back at the next Princeton Future meeting. And we will do a double check saying, did we get it right? So that you can all double look at it again. But again, thank you so much for your input today. It turned out to be absolutely invaluable, of course. And we use every bit of information that you guys have given us to be able to hopefully take care of the and begin to be partnered with the process. Again, thank you all so very much.